What if I told you that one of the most steadfast, fearless members of the British royal family is in grave danger right now? What if, at this very moment, the world is holding its breath, waiting for news about someone we've always thought invincible? Princess and Queen Elizabeth's daughter, the royal who has endured decades of public scrutiny with unshakable poise, the woman who embodies discipline, duty, and resilience, is suddenly facing a crisis that no royal protocol, no palace security, no amount of experience could have fully prepared her for. And it all happened just hours ago. 2 minutes ago, to be exact, if the reports are accurate. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine this. The world is moving along. News channels are covering their usual cycles. People are scrolling through their phones, laughing at memes, or catching up on the latest celebrity drama. And then, boom, a flash alert interrupts everything. Royal family confirms devastating news about princess and car crash accident. Instantly, millions of people across the globe are gripped by disbelief. Questions rush to the forefront. How? Why? Is she okay? What actually happened? And perhaps most importantly, what does this mean for the royal family and the monarchy as a whole? From the moment Princess Anne was born, she carried with her the weight of expectations. She was the second child of Queen Elizabeth II, a princess destined to observe the rigid traditions of royalty while forging her own path. Unlike some members of the royal family who became known for glamour, scandal, or headline-making marriages, and carved her reputation through sheer dedication and work ethic, her charity initiatives, equestrian triumphs, and tireless public service have made her one of the most respected royals in modern history. Yet, today, all of that prestige, all of that carefully built image, is suddenly overshadowed by fear, uncertainty, and shocking developments. But let's pause for a moment. Why does this matter to you? Why should someone thousands of miles away, who has never attended a royal event or met a single member of the British monarchy, care about Princess Anne's accident? The answer lies not just in her status, but in what her story represents. Princess Anne has always been a figure of resilience, someone who withstood personal loss, public scrutiny, and the unrelenting glare of media attention. She represents a life of discipline under immense pressure, and in a sense, she is a symbol of endurance for all of us. Watching someone like Anne, who seems untouchable, suddenly thrown into a life-or-death situation, forces us to confront our own vulnerabilities. It reminds us that no matter how invincible someone appears on the outside, tragedy can strike without warning. Sources close to the palace are confirming the incident, though details are scarce. A car crash, officials say, though the severity is still being assessed. Rumors have already begun circulating. Some say it was a minor collision that escalated due to medical complications. Others insist it was far more serious than the initial statements suggest. And then there are the whispers that cannot be verified yet. Was there another vehicle involved? Was the crash truly an accident? Or could there have been negligence? Or worse, foul play? These questions hang in the air like a storm cloud over Buckingham Palace, and no one seems willing to offer concrete answers. The first reports arrived within moments of the accident, triggering a media frenzy. Social media exploded with speculation. News channels scrambled to confirm facts, calling palace spokespeople, former aides, medical experts, and even journalists who have long-standing contacts within the royal family. Within minutes, the incident became trending worldwide. But amid the chaos, a crucial point has been lost in the noise. The real story isn't just that Princess Anne was in a crash. It's the ripple effect that follows, the secrets it threatens to uncover, and the tension it is sure to ignite within one of the most scrutinized families on the planet. It's worth pausing here to understand the sheer gravity of this moment. The royal family is not just a group of people. It is an institution. Every action, every word, every decision is amplified on a global scale. The image of strength and continuity is meticulously curated. A crisis like this challenges that image in ways few can truly grasp. For decades, Princess Anne has been the hardest-working royal, the one who could be relied upon in times of public grief, charity events, or royal ceremonies. But today, the roles are reversed. The world is watching as Anne, the pillar, becomes the vulnerable one. And in that vulnerability lies a tension so powerful, so immediate, that it demands attention. So where exactly did it happen? Early reports suggest it was on a busy road near Windsor. Eyewitnesses describe a silver vehicle skidding off the road, the sound of metal against metal, the flash of emergency lights reflecting off the polished asphalt. Neighbors called local authorities, and the palace quickly dispatched a team to manage the crisis. But even as these reports surface, conflicting accounts are emerging. Some witnesses insist the car swerved unexpectedly, while others suggest an unseen hazard or another vehicle might have caused the accident. Every account seems credible, yet none tell the full story. And therein lies the tension that will carry through the next hour of coverage. The truth is out there, but it is fragmented, elusive, and perhaps deliberately obscured. We must also consider the human element. Behind every royal facade is a family, filled with emotion, worry, and uncertainty. In these first critical moments, we can imagine the panic that rippled through the palace. Security protocols kicked in. Private medical teams were alerted. High-ranking aides scrambled to manage communications, both internally and externally. And through it all, Princess and herself remained at the center of the storm, a woman whose entire life has been governed by order, protocol, and public expectation. What must she be feeling right now? Fear? Anguish? Frustration? And what about those closest to her? Her children, her siblings, her loyal staff? Their worry is compounded not just by the immediate danger, but by the public nature of the incident. Every thought, every action, is scrutinized by millions, leaving no room for privacy, no sanctuary for grief. Adding another layer of intrigue, early reports hint at the possibility that this crash could intersect with past family tensions. For years, Princess Anne has navigated the complex dynamics of the royal family with precision. Her relationships with her siblings, her mother, and her children often subject to speculation and rumor. Could this accident, coincidentally or otherwise, shed new light on internal conflicts? Could it reveal fractures within the monarchy that have long been hidden from public view? We cannot yet know, but the possibility alone fuels curiosity and anxiety, compelling us to pay attention, to stay tuned, to watch as the story unfolds. And as we reflect on the immediate aftermath, consider this. The royal family has weathered scandals, crises, and tragedies before. They have managed everything from divorces and secret affairs to public backlash and political pressure. Yet, there is something uniquely unsettling about a direct, life-threatening accident striking one of its most steadfast members. It is not a scandal. It is not gossip. It is raw vulnerability, sudden and unavoidable, forcing the institution to confront its mortality in a very public way. And it forces us, the audience, to confront our own fascination with these lives that, while distant, are undeniably connected to global consciousness. So what actually happened in the moments before the crash? What did Princess Anne feel and hear? What role did the royal aides play? And perhaps most importantly, what secrets does this accident threaten to uncover? Secrets that the palace might not want us to know for years, if ever? These are the questions that will guide us through the next hour. As shocking as this moment is, it is only the opening act of a story filled with tension, emotion, and revelation. And while the media will continue to spin fragments of truth, we will peel back the layers, chapter by chapter, revealing the story in its entirety. By the end of this video, you will understand not just the crash itself, but the emotional, political, and familial fallout that has already begun to ripple through the monarchy. You will hear eyewitness accounts, insider insights, and confidential sources. You will see how the accident unfolded, what the palace did behind closed doors, and what this could mean for Princess Anne's future, the royal family, and the public perception of the monarchy. And yet, even as we start this journey, one critical fact looms over everything. The most shocking revelations are still to come. The accident itself is only part of the story. What came next, the decisions made in the minutes following the crash, the hidden conflicts, the whispers of long-held secrets, will change everything. And no one saw it coming. It started like any other morning for Princess Anne. The sun had barely risen over Windsor, casting a soft golden hue across the manicured lawns of her estate. Birds chirped, the air smelled faintly of dew, and the world outside seemed calm, unaware of the storm that was about to erupt. But inside the royal circle, this calm was about to be shattered forever. 2 minutes can change everything, and for Princess Anne, those 2 minutes became a moment that no one, neither the palace staff nor her closest family, would ever forget. Imagine it, a sleek, silver car gliding through the quiet morning streets. Princess Anne, a woman known for her meticulous nature and love of punctuality, was headed to a private engagement, something routine, something she had done countless times before. Perhaps she was rehearsing her speech for a charity gala, or maybe she was lost in thought about an upcoming royal tour. Whatever the case, the world outside her window seemed perfectly ordinary. No signs of danger. No hint that this drive, seemingly so mundane, would end in chaos. Eyewitnesses later described the moment in fragmented, shocking detail. One resident recalled hearing the unmistakable screech of tires against asphalt, a metallic crunch that shattered the morning calm, followed by the sight of a silver vehicle spinning uncontrollably before colliding with a roadside barrier. It was surreal, the witness said. 1 second, everything was normal. The next, there was smoke, and the car looked like it had been in a movie crash scene. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But here's the thing. Eyewitness accounts, as often happens, only tell part of the story. Some saw a vehicle swerve unexpectedly, others claimed there was a second car involved, and still others whispered about shadows moving along the roadside just before the accident. Conflicting narratives, each seemingly plausible, but none offering the full truth. And in that confusion lies a key tension. What actually happened? Who, or what, caused the crash? And how did someone as experienced and cautious as Princess Anne find herself in this situation? At the moment of impact, chaos erupted. The car jolted violently, metal bent and glass shattered. For Princess Anne, a woman trained to face adversity with calm and precision, the experience must have been terrifying. The collision itself, sudden and jarring, is one thing. But it's the moments immediately after, a heartbeat, a breath, a second too long before help arrives, that define the human experience of danger. One can only imagine the flash of adrenaline, the instinct to survive, the mental calculations of a life lived in the spotlight, now facing imminent risk. Within moments, the palace security apparatus was activated. The royal family, always prepared for emergencies, responded with a level of precision that few outside the walls of Buckingham Palace can imagine. A team of aides, bodyguards, and medical professionals mobilized with military-like efficiency. But even as they acted, the uncertainty of the situation weighed heavily. Was Princess Anne conscious? Was she injured severely? And perhaps most importantly, how much of this should the public know, and how much should remain hidden? The early reports, as is often the case with royal emergencies, were carefully worded. The palace issued a brief statement acknowledging an accident and assuring the public that Princess Anne was receiving care. Yet within that statement, there was a tension, a gap, a subtle signal that the situation might be more serious than initially indicated. Insiders whispered about the palace's efforts to control the narrative, to maintain calm while managing a crisis that could easily spiral into chaos. And then there are the human stories, the small but critical details that rarely make headlines. A neighbor ran to the roadside, trying to assist. Emergency personnel worked under pressure, navigating protocol, public expectation, and the sheer weight of responsibility. Every action mattered. Every second counted. The crash was not just a physical event. It was a test of the coordination, courage, and quick thinking of everyone involved. But there is something even more remarkable here. Princess Anne herself. Unlike many public figures who might panic, who might freeze under pressure, Anne's history suggests she would have acted with composure, using her instincts and training. She is a woman who has survived countless high-pressure situations, from diplomatic events with heads of state to equestrian competitions where stakes were literal life-or-death scenarios. And yet, even her composure could not make her immune to this sudden, life-threatening event. Meanwhile, the first ripple of panic spread through the royal family. Immediate family members were alerted. Private communications buzzed. Text messages, phone calls, urgent conversations behind closed doors. Some family members reportedly rushed to the scene. Others coordinated with medical teams remotely, while still others contacted high-ranking aides and advisors. The palace, a symbol of poise and control, was now a hive of controlled panic, each individual performing their duties while grappling with the reality that one of their own was vulnerable, exposed, and potentially in grave danger. At the same time, the public reaction was beginning to take shape. Social media, ever vigilant and ever instantaneous, lit up with speculation, concern, and fear. Tweets and posts flew across the globe, some genuine, some sensationalized. The world was watching, even before details were fully known. And in that moment, the story grew beyond a simple accident. It became a global event, a collective gasp of disbelief. How could someone so disciplined, so careful, find herself in such peril? The media scramble brought both clarity and confusion. Some outlets focused on the accident itself, offering reconstructions of the crash scene, interviews with first responders, and technical analysis of the vehicle's trajectory. Others hinted at the palace's internal response, whispering about secret communications and the hidden mechanisms that the royal family uses to manage crises. And still, others speculated wildly. Was there a political angle? Could this be tied to past family tensions? Was it purely an accident, or could there have been external factors at play? And then there's the emotional dimension, often overlooked in media coverage. Imagine the fear, the shock, the helplessness felt not just by Princess Anne, but by her children, her staff, and her closest confidants. These are people who have spent their lives in the shadow of the public eye, constantly aware of perception, reputation, and expectation. Yet here, in this instant, all of that fades. The priority is simple, raw, and urgent. Survival, safety, and the hope that the worst can be avoided. Even as the first responders worked tirelessly, the incident began to reveal deeper questions. How prepared is the royal family for emergencies of this nature? What protocols exist for high-ranking members of the monarchy in situations of sudden physical danger? How are communications managed to balance transparency with privacy? And in a broader sense, what does this moment reveal about vulnerability at the highest levels of society? By now, the story had already begun to evolve beyond the initial crash. Reports of hospital arrivals, medical evaluations, and emergency procedures trickled in, each fragment adding to the tension, each snippet feeding the collective anxiety. Yet, even in this flurry of information, one thing was clear: this was not a simple event. This was a defining moment, a pivot point in Princess Anne's life and in the public perception of the royal family. And as the world awaited more details, one lingering question remained: what would happen next? The first moments of an accident often dictate the trajectory of recovery, public narrative, and family dynamics. Every decision made in these critical hours, medical, logistical, strategic, would have consequences far beyond what anyone could imagine. And in the palace, in emergency rooms, and on the streets of Windsor, those decisions were unfolding in real time, each with potential to shock, surprise, or devastate. So here we are, on the edge of a story that has only just begun to reveal itself. Princess Anne, a figure of resilience, poise, and unshakable discipline, is facing a moment of peril that shakes the monarchy and grips the world. The crash is not just an incident. It is a portal into unseen vulnerabilities, family tensions, and secrets that may never have been imagined. And the truth, as you will see in the chapters ahead, is far stranger and more shocking than any headline, rumor, or social media post could capture. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The news traveled fast, faster than anyone could have anticipated. Within moments of the accident, Buckingham Palace went into crisis mode, a level of urgency few outsiders ever witness. Picture the sprawling estate with its ornate gates, grand halls, and centuries of tradition. Now imagine that for the first time in decades, the palace was buzzing not with ceremonial pomp or royal protocol, but with a frantic energy, aides rushing, phones ringing endlessly, staff moving with a precision that bordered on military timing. Princess Anne, one of the most dependable and steadfast members of the royal family, had been in a serious car accident, and the entire institution was suddenly forced to confront a reality it rarely faces publicly: vulnerability. The first calls were made almost instantly. Private medical teams were alerted, security personnel mobilized, and senior aides coordinated logistics with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. But even with all this preparation, the initial confusion was unavoidable. The crash had occurred just outside Windsor, a location that, while familiar to the royal family, was chaotic in the aftermath. Emergency vehicles converged on the scene as neighbors and bystanders stared in disbelief. The palace had to act quickly to protect both Princess and the family's reputation. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was tense. Aides who had spent decades managing public relations for sensitive royal matters were now dealing with the raw fear of uncertainty. They were used to controlling narratives, carefully curated statements, choreographed appearances, strategic timing. But nothing could fully prepare them for the sheer immediacy of this crisis. The words princess and car accident were already trending worldwide, flashing across news feeds, televisions, and social media feeds, while the palace scrambled to respond in real time. The official statement was brief, carefully crafted to reassure the public while maintaining privacy. It read in part, Princess and was involved in a vehicle incident earlier today. She is receiving appropriate medical attention. Further updates will be provided when available. On the surface, it seemed measured and reassuring. Yet every word was calculated, designed to project calm and control while leaving the door open for further developments. For those watching closely, the phrasing raised questions. If the incident were minor, why such a formal announcement? If serious, why the vagueness? Every choice in wording was a chess move in the palace's carefully guarded public game. Behind closed doors, however, the situation was far more chaotic. Sources within the palace described a scene of controlled panic. Nurses and medical staff, many of whom were specially trained for royal emergencies, coordinated with local hospitals to prepare for Princess Anne's arrival. Security teams ensured the crash site was cleared of onlookers and paparazzi, while palace aides managed the flow of information to prevent leaks or speculation. Every decision was high stakes. A single misstep could trigger a media storm, public panic, or even political fallout. And then there were the family members. While the public only saw carefully arranged appearances, inside Buckingham Palace, emotions ran high. Immediate family members, including Princess Anne's children, were reportedly informed and given private updates. Some rushed to the scene, others coordinated remotely with medical teams. The tension was palpable. Here was a woman who had been a pillar of stability and composure, now at the center of a life-threatening crisis. For the first time in decades, the royal family faced the raw, unfiltered human fear that every parent, sibling, and child experiences when a loved one is in danger. Even the Queen, who had navigated countless crises throughout her reign, was said to be deeply concerned. Sources suggest that her advisors moved swiftly to ensure she was both informed and shielded from unnecessary stress, balancing her need for accurate information with the desire to maintain dignity and composure. This delicate dance, protecting family while managing public perception, is something the royal family has mastered over generations. Yet, no amount of experience could erase the immediate anxiety of seeing one of their own injured. Meanwhile, palace security teams were performing a flurry of tasks that outsiders rarely see. The immediate priority was Princess Anne's safety, ensuring that no further harm could come to her, that the path to the hospital was secure, and that emergency responders had unhindered access. Simultaneously, the teams managed communications, controlling what information reached the public, monitoring media coverage, and intercepting leaks. In a situation where every second counts, every decision matters, one overlooked detail could spiral into disaster. The palace's communications team faced perhaps the most difficult challenge, maintaining transparency while protecting privacy. In today's world, information travels at lightning speed. Rumors, speculation, and social media posts can spread within seconds, shaping public perception long before verified details emerge. The statement released by Buckingham Palace was a calculated effort to project calm and control, but the words chosen were as revealing as they were cautious. Receiving appropriate medical attention leaves room for interpretation. Further updates will be provided when available, signals both urgency and uncertainty. Every phrase, every pause, every carefully placed word reflects a centuries-old understanding of how to navigate public scrutiny during a crisis. As hours passed, palace insiders began coordinating with local authorities, hospitals, and medical specialists. Contingency plans were activated for various scenarios: minor injuries, severe trauma, and worst-case possibilities. Every angle was considered. The palace, after all, is not just a home. It is an institution that represents continuity, tradition, and authority. Any incident involving a senior member could have consequences far beyond the immediate physical harm. It could affect public confidence, the family's image, and even political relations. And yet, amid all this preparation, there was an undeniable human element. Staff described moments of quiet panic, whispered conversations, and glances exchanged with unspoken fear. Nurses worried about the toll on Princess Anne. Security officers faced moral dilemmas, balancing protocol with compassion. Aides had to juggle logistics, media management, and the delicate task of reassuring family members. Even in a world governed by strict rules and centuries-old traditions, the unpredictable nature of human emotion seeped through. By the time Princess Anne arrived at the hospital, every protocol had been executed to perfection. Medical teams were ready, security was tight, and communications were controlled. Yet despite this precision, questions remained unanswered. How severe were her injuries? What caused the accident? Could it have been prevented? And perhaps most importantly, what were the unseen implications for the royal family? These questions lingered in the air like storm clouds, waiting to erupt with each new revelation. Even more shocking were the whispers that began to circulate within palace corridors. Sources hinted at tensions between family members, suggesting that the accident had sparked not just concern, but conflict. Could it be that hidden disputes, long buried, were suddenly surfacing under the stress of a crisis? Insiders spoke of arguments over medical decisions, disagreements on how to communicate with the public, and even disputes over who should be informed first. The accident, it seems, did more than injure. It revealed fractures in the family's carefully constructed facade. And while the world watched the headlines, the palace knew that this was just the beginning. Contingency plans for future developments were being drafted, legal teams consulted, and strategists considered every possible angle. Nothing was left to chance. Every detail mattered. Every minute brought new developments. And every new piece of information only added to the tension. Yet amid all this orchestration, one thing remained uncertain: Princess Anne's own response. Those who know her well describe a woman of unparalleled resilience, someone who faces adversity head-on and refuses to be defined by fear. And even in this moment of vulnerability, it is likely that she was assessing her situation, thinking ahead, and maintaining her composure in a way that few outsiders would recognize. The palace's reaction, swift and meticulously coordinated, underscores the gravity of the moment. Every action, from security deployment to media management, from emergency medical care to family coordination, highlights how high the stakes were and remain. And while the public sees only the polished statement and the controlled headlines, the true story of those first critical hours reveals tension, urgency, and drama on a scale rarely witnessed outside the royal family. As the day unfolded, palace aides worked tirelessly to manage both the immediate crisis and the inevitable fallout. They navigated delicate communication lines, ensured the safety of Princess Anne, and coordinated medical care, all while keeping one eye on public perception. In a family and an institution where image is everything, the accident was not just a personal crisis. It was a challenge to the monarchy itself. And in these first hours, every decision, every choice, carried consequences that could ripple for years. But just as the palace seemed to have contained the initial shock, one piece of information arrived that no one expected. A mysterious eyewitness account, contradicting earlier reports, hinted at something more complicated, more dangerous, and far more personal than a simple accident. And this single revelation would begin to shift the story, altering both the family's response and the public's perception in ways that were impossible to predict. What this eyewitness saw, and why the palace may have wanted to keep it quiet, sets the stage for a chain of events that will challenge every assumption, every expectation, and every belief about this incident. The controlled calm of Buckingham Palace, while impressive, is only the surface. Beneath it lies tension, fear, and secrets waiting to be revealed. And just when it seemed the palace had taken full control, the next shocking detail emerged, one that would turn the entire narrative on its head and leave everyone questioning. What really happened that day? The sirens had faded, the flashing lights of the emergency vehicles had dimmed, and yet the tension was far from over. Princess Anne had arrived at the hospital, but arriving is just the beginning. The world rarely sees the hours that follow a high-profile medical emergency, the exacting protocols, the whispered consultations, the silent urgency. For Princess Anne, every second mattered. And for those watching from the outside, a world glued to news alerts and social media, the truth of what was happening inside the hospital remained tantalizingly out of reach. Imagine the scene: a private medical wing, specially designated for royal emergencies. Nurses and doctors moved with quiet efficiency, their faces masked but their eyes betraying focus and concern. Monitors beeped, machines hummed, and every motion was choreographed to balance precision with speed. Princess Anne, always composed in public, was now the patient, the center of scrutiny, and the subject of every decision made in that room. What was happening inside could determine not just the outcome of her injuries, but the trajectory of her life, her public image, and even the stability of the monarchy. The first assessment was critical. Medical staff quickly ran through standard protocols, checking vital signs, assessing for trauma, conducting initial scans. But the accident, as they soon realized, was not straightforward. Some injuries were immediately apparent: bruising, lacerations, the telltale signs of impact, but others were subtle, internal, and potentially life-threatening. It is the hidden complications that often define high-stakes medical emergencies, the ones that are invisible to the naked eye yet devastating in their consequences. Princess Anne's medical history added a layer of complexity to the situation. She is a woman who has always led an active life, involved in equestrian pursuits, long hours of public engagement, and demanding schedules that place enormous strain on both mind and body. While she is remarkably resilient, the human body has limits, and accidents can exacerbate underlying conditions. Every decision the medical team made had to account for both immediate trauma and long-term health considerations. They could not simply treat the injuries. They had to anticipate complications, manage risks, and ensure that their interventions did not inadvertently worsen her condition. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, the world waited. News channels buzzed with speculation, social media lit up with hashtags, and amateur sleuths dissected every tweet, every post, every possible piece of information. The palace remained tight-lipped, releasing only carefully phrased statements to assure the public while preserving Princess Anne's privacy. But the juxtaposition was striking: a woman at the center of global attention, yet largely invisible to those who watched most closely. The tension between public curiosity and private crisis is a hallmark of royal emergencies, a delicate balancing act that few institutions manage with such precision. Inside the hospital, there were moments of unexpected drama. A sudden change in Princess Anne's vitals prompted immediate action. Doctors and nurses moved swiftly, interpreting monitors and making split-second decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. Family members were updated in carefully controlled bursts. Information was filtered, managed, and delivered in a way that balanced transparency with discretion. The medical staff operated in a world of urgency, where every second, every decision, every intervention could have profound consequences. Yet there was a mystery that puzzled the team. Some of Princess Anne's responses to medical evaluations were inconsistent with the apparent severity of her injuries. This raised questions, even among seasoned professionals. Were there hidden complications? Could there be an underlying condition exacerbated by the trauma? Or was there something else entirely, something unexpected, unseen, that could change the course of treatment? These questions heightened the tension, adding layers of uncertainty to an already precarious situation. Adding to the complexity was the presence of the palace's private medical advisors. These individuals are experts in royal health, familiar with both the physical and psychological demands placed on members of the family. Their role is unique: to ensure not just survival, but the preservation of public image, continuity of duties, and the management of sensitive information. In Princess Anne's case, they had to coordinate with hospital staff, advise on every intervention, and anticipate both medical and public implications. The pressure was immense, the stakes higher than in nearly any standard emergency room scenario. Communication, as ever, was a delicate dance. The team had to manage not only the immediate medical concerns, but also the flow of information to the family, the palace, and, indirectly, the public. Every statement, every update, every decision about disclosure had to be carefully considered. Too much information could spark panic. Too little could fuel speculation. And yet, the human element remained paramount. Beyond protocols and procedures, there were lives at stake, emotions raw and immediate, and decisions that could leave lasting consequences. As hours passed, subtle complications began to emerge. Internal bleeding, previously undetected, required rapid intervention. Imaging scans revealed anomalies that demanded further investigation. The medical team worked tirelessly, balancing precision with urgency, every move informed by both experience and instinct. For Princess, and every test, every examination, every adjustment to treatment carried significance. And for the observers outside, these nuances were invisible, hidden behind layers of privacy and protocol, leaving only tantalizing fragments of information to fuel curiosity and concern. The role of family input during this time was equally critical. Princess and children, informed with restraint, contributed to decisions regarding her care. Their perspective, informed by intimate knowledge of her habits, preferences, and resilience, provided essential insight. Yet the pressure of the moment, coupled with the overwhelming public attention, created a tension that was palpable. Every choice, every suggestion, every question carried weight far beyond the immediate medical considerations. At the same time, rumors began to circulate. Some sources suggested that Princess Anne's condition was far more serious than publicly acknowledged. Others hinted at unusual complications that could have lifelong consequences. The palace, as ever, maintained discretion, but the whispers were impossible to contain entirely. And with each new fragment of information, the tension mounted. What was the full extent of her injuries? How serious were the internal complications? And what, if any, long-term impact would this accident have on her life and duties? Yet amid the uncertainty, there were moments of human connection and emotional intensity. Nurses described Princess Anne as composed, even in discomfort, demonstrating resilience and determination that inspired those around her. Family members showed visible concern, their presence a stabilizing force. The medical staff, trained to handle high-pressure scenarios, balanced efficiency with empathy, understanding that the emotional well-being of the patient was as critical as physical treatment. And just as it seemed the team was gaining control, an unexpected development arose. A subtle shift in Princess Anne's condition prompted immediate reevaluation, sparking a flurry of activity in the room. Questions arose about previously undetected injuries, potential complications, and the adequacy of the initial assessments. Every professional present understood the gravity. A single misjudgment could have devastating consequences. And while the outward appearance was one of calm competence, the intensity inside the room was extraordinary. A concentrated mix of fear, focus, and hope. Perhaps most striking was the contradiction at the heart of the situation. Princess Anne, a woman renowned for her poise, discipline, and resilience, was simultaneously a patient in critical condition and a symbol of unshakable strength. This paradox heightened both the drama and the stakes. To the public, she must remain composed, dignified, untouchable. Yet in private, she faced the uncertainty, vulnerability, and raw fear that no amount of protocol could fully mitigate. As the day progressed, the medical mystery deepened. Tests continued, analyses were repeated, and teams conferred repeatedly to ensure every angle was considered. The palace coordinated with specialists, consulted previous medical records, and scrutinized every detail. Yet even in this meticulous environment, uncertainty lingered. Every discovery raised new questions, and every answer revealed further complexity. And then came the first truly shocking revelation. A previously undetected complication, one that threatened not just recovery, but life itself. The medical team, despite all their preparation, had encountered something unforeseen. It was a moment that would alter the trajectory of the incident, shifting it from a controlled emergency to a scenario fraught with risk, suspense, and emotional intensity. What this complication was, and how it would be addressed, remains the thread that will pull us into the next chapter. But one thing is certain. The hospital, the palace, and Princess and herself now faced a challenge far greater than a simple car accident. Every decision, every intervention, and every moment mattered in a way that few could have anticipated. And just as hope seemed to stabilize the situation, a new, unexpected detail emerged. A factor so unpredictable, so critical, that it would shock even those closest to Princess and redefine the course of the unfolding drama. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but eyewitness accounts can be worth even more, especially when the stakes are as high as a royal emergency. In the immediate aftermath of Princess Anne's accident, as flashing lights reflected off the wet asphalt and smoke still lingered from the collision, the first people on the scene began speaking. Their testimonies are fragmented, contradictory, sometimes shocking, but together they form the earliest glimpse into the chaos that unfolded in those crucial minutes. One resident, an elderly man who had lived near the crash site for decades, described the sound first. "It was like a bomb went off," he said, his voice still trembling. "Metal twisting, tires squealing, glass shattering. I ran to the window, and I couldn't believe my eyes. The car, it looked like it had rolled 3 times. I thought, this is it. Someone's not going to make it." His account was punctuated by the heavy breathing of someone still processing what he'd witnessed, a visceral reminder that even the ordinary bystander can be thrown into extraordinary events. But not all accounts agreed. A young woman who had been jogging nearby recalled seeing something entirely different. "I saw the car swerve sharply," she explained. "It wasn't rolling. It seemed like it was avoiding something or someone. There was another vehicle, maybe on the wrong side of the road. I don't know. I just know she didn't deserve this. Princess, and she's always so careful. How could this happen?" Her confusion mirrored the broader uncertainty that would follow in the hours and days to come. Facts were elusive, and perception became a puzzle of half-truths. Even first responders had their own versions of the story. Paramedics who arrived within minutes recalled a scene of organized chaos. Traffic had already begun to accumulate. Bystanders were pointing and shouting, and the injured were trapped inside the silver vehicle. "It's hard to describe the tension," one paramedic said. "We train for emergencies, but this was different. This was Princess Anne. Every decision mattered. Every movement was under scrutiny. We had to work fast, but also carefully, knowing the world was watching, even if we couldn't see them." Then there were the witnesses whose observations were more cryptic. A security guard stationed near the estate's entrance reported seeing a shadowy figure dart across the roadside just before the collision. "I can't say who it was," he admitted, "but something, or someone, was there. It distracted her for a moment. That's all I know. It might be nothing, but maybe it wasn't." This account introduced a thread of intrigue that would linger for days. Could there have been an external factor, someone unseen, influencing the accident? Or was it merely a coincidence, a byproduct of the chaotic timing? The uncertainty added tension, fueling speculation both inside the palace and outside it. What these accounts collectively reveal is a scene of unpredictability. Even with years of training, experience, and preparation, no one can fully anticipate the chain of events that occur in a split second. Every witness saw only a fragment, each filtered through personal perception and emotion. Yet together, their statements begin to construct a picture: shattered glass, twisting metal, flashes of movement, and the unmistakable presence of fear. This is the human dimension of the accident, a blend of chaos and clarity, truth and conjecture. And there are the quieter voices, the ones that didn't make headlines. A local delivery driver, who happened upon the scene moments after the crash, described a moment that stood out. "I saw her," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "Princess Anne. She was conscious. She looked determined. Even after the crash, she wasn't panicking. She was focused, calm. It was like she was telling the world she wasn't done yet." This glimpse of composure in the face of chaos would echo throughout the unfolding story, highlighting the resilience that has defined Princess and throughout her public life. Yet for all the glimpses of courage and composure, the human cost was immediate. Some witnesses described bystanders attempting to help, only to be pushed back by security. "We wanted to do something," one passerby said. "But the palace staff were so strict, so precise. It was like stepping into a cordoned-off zone. We could only watch and hope." That tension, the desire to act, constrained by protocol, is a recurring theme in high-profile emergencies. It underscores a universal truth. In moments of crisis, even the most well-meaning intentions can be limited by circumstance, rules, and the immediacy of danger. Then came the subtle contradictions that would puzzle investigators and analysts alike. One witness insisted the vehicle had skidded on wet pavement. Another claimed the car had hit an unexpected obstruction, while a third suggested the driver had braked too sharply, overcorrecting in the process. These discrepancies, while minor in isolation, create a ripple of doubt. They raise the question, can anyone truly know what happened in those critical seconds? And for the palace, for Princess and for the public, these uncertainties add a layer of suspense that is both compelling and unnerving. The testimonies also began to reveal patterns, moments of heroism, flashes of panic, and the unpredictable nature of human behavior under stress. One neighbor recalled the efforts of a passing motorist who had stopped immediately to assist, directing emergency responders and keeping bystanders at bay. Another mentioned a young child nearby who, witnessing the scene, screamed in shock and fear. These vignettes, seemingly small, are critical to understanding the full scope of the event, an intersection of human courage, vulnerability, and raw emotion in the midst of a life-altering incident. And then there is the timing, the seconds that matter most. Multiple witnesses independently noted that from the moment of impact to the arrival of emergency responders was only a few minutes. Yet those minutes felt stretched, almost suspended in time. The adrenaline, the fear, and the uncertainty created a distorted perception of duration. For Princess and every heartbeat in those moments was critical. For the witnesses, every second carried the weight of what could have been a tragedy. And for the palace, those same seconds demanded immediate, decisive action. Some accounts introduced a more chilling element, the suggestion that this was not purely an accident. A local resident mentioned seeing a vehicle parked suspiciously near the crash site moments before the incident. "I don't know who it was," the resident said, "but it felt deliberate, like someone was watching." Whether this claim is credible or merely an interpretation fueled by shock and fear, it underscores a persistent tension in the story, the possibility that the accident may have had external influences, complicating what might otherwise seem like a simple chain of events. Yet, even in the midst of chaos, there are remarkable examples of human instinct. Witnesses describe a nurse who had been passing by the estate, recognizing the vehicle, and immediately assisting paramedics, guiding the extraction of Princess and from the car with calm efficiency. Another passerby recalled the actions of a nearby cyclist who offered blankets and comfort, minimizing shock until professional help arrived. These small acts of bravery and quick thinking remind us that even in extraordinary circumstances, human empathy and courage play a decisive role. As these eyewitness accounts accumulate, a complex mosaic begins to emerge. We see the accident not as a single moment, but as a sequence: the swerve, the impact, the response, the immediate aftermath. Each perspective adds depth, nuance, and tension, revealing both the chaos of the moment and the extraordinary efforts to maintain control. And yet, with all this information, one question remains unresolved. How did Princess and a driver of meticulous habit and exceptional skill find herself in this position in the first place? This question looms large because the implications extend beyond the immediate accident. If it was truly a misstep, it reflects the unpredictable nature of life, even for those who appear invincible. If there were external factors, the stakes become far more troubling. And for the palace, these uncertainties demand careful management. The need to protect a royal family member, preserve institutional reputation, and manage public perception simultaneously. Then came the most shocking insight of all. Multiple eyewitnesses reported a figure, an unidentified person, near the crash site before the collision, someone who seemed to be moving deliberately, almost purposefully. Some claimed it was a pedestrian crossing the street. Others insisted it was someone observing the car, waiting for an opportunity. Security officials, reviewing early surveillance, found traces of movement that corroborated these accounts. The implications are profound. Could this accident have been influenced by an external actor? And if so, who and why? As the hours unfolded, these eyewitness accounts became invaluable. Investigators, palace officials, and medical teams alike relied on their observations to reconstruct the event. Each fragment, each contradiction, each small detail contributed to a fuller understanding. But even with all the pieces, the puzzle remained incomplete. And just when it seemed the story could be pieced together, a final, chilling account emerged from a witness who had been watching from a distance. They described something so unexpected, so confounding, that it cast doubt on everything previously believed. What they saw challenged prior assumptions, added new complexity, and introduced a question that no one yet had an answer for. What really caused the accident? And was there more to this story than anyone dared imagine? In the age of cameras everywhere, nothing escapes the lens, not even the royal family. Within hours of Princess Anne's accident, investigators and palace officials began reviewing every available recording. Traffic cams, private security feeds, dash cams, and even cell phone footage from onlookers. What emerged was a mosaic of movement, confusion, and, most surprisingly, hidden details that would begin to rewrite the narrative of the morning. This footage didn't just show the accident. It revealed nuances that eyewitness accounts alone could never capture. The first clip came from a small traffic camera positioned at the bend where the accident occurred. The silver vehicle carrying Princess Anne can be seen approaching slowly, its brake lights flashing briefly. In the split second before the impact, there's a subtle movement on the side of the road, a shadowy figure that seems to step into the peripheral frame and vanish. Security analysts studying the footage replayed it frame by frame, attempting to determine if it was a pedestrian, a bystander, or something more deliberate. The uncertainty in those fleeting seconds would fuel speculation for days to come. Meanwhile, palace security released internal surveillance from nearby entrances and gates, showing staff reacting to the emergency almost instantly. Guards can be seen moving quickly toward the scene, coordinating with emergency responders, and securing the area. These clips, while technical and procedural, illustrate the precision of the palace's crisis management. Yet within the efficiency lies subtle tension. Officers glance over shoulders, communicate in urgent whispers, and make split-second decisions under the scrutiny of an unseen public. Each frame reveals a story not just of protocol, but of human urgency under extreme pressure. Then there was a dash cam from a nearby delivery truck, inadvertently capturing the accident from a unique angle. The video shows the car veering unexpectedly, a brief skidding motion, and the moment of impact against the roadside barrier. For the first time, analysts could see the trajectory clearly, the physics of the crash unfolding with stark clarity. But what made the footage compelling and controversial was a small anomaly, a glint of metal or reflective surface that appeared to shift just before the car's movement. Experts debated its significance. Was it an object in the road, a reflection of the sun, or something intentional? The ambiguity sparked a wave of theories that the palace would later struggle to contain. Cell phone footage from bystanders offered a human perspective, emotional and chaotic. One clip shows the crash from across the street, the screeching tires, the sudden jolt, the instinctive reaction of pedestrians rushing toward the scene. In another clip, a passerby captured Princess Anne being assisted from the vehicle, her movements deliberate despite apparent discomfort. These raw moments, unfiltered by protocol or press statements, provide a glimpse into the immediate human response: shock, urgency, and courage. And while these videos were initially contained within investigative teams, leaks began surfacing almost immediately, igniting social media speculation and global attention. The combination of surveillance and eyewitness footage also revealed discrepancies between initial statements and reality. For example, early palace communications suggested a single vehicle incident with no other parties involved. Yet some footage hinted at another vehicle moving near the scene, partially obscured by shadows, appearing just as the crash occurred. Analysts debated its role. Was it coincidental, negligent, or a contributing factor? And if there was another vehicle, why hadn't it been disclosed in official statements? These inconsistencies added a layer of intrigue, fueling public curiosity and feeding the narrative of hidden details and palace discretion. In addition to the public footage, there was a more sensitive set of recordings, internal palace security feeds. These cameras, designed for both safety and surveillance, captured moments immediately before and after the crash. They show rapid movements of guards, frantic communications over encrypted lines, and attempts to control bystanders and media. One clip even suggests a minor delay in initial response due to a security protocol conflict. Officers hesitated momentarily, debating the safest approach to access the vehicle without exposing Princess and to additional risk. Each of these moments, seemingly trivial, represents the high-stakes environment of royal crisis management. Medical teams also had their own documentation. Video logs from the ambulance, taken with secure cameras, capture the urgency of care as paramedics stabilized Princess and every action, checking vitals, adjusting straps, communicating with hospital staff, was recorded in real time. These recordings provide not only medical insight but a psychological glimpse. The tension in the air, the focused expressions of professionals under pressure, and the unwavering composure of the princess herself, responding to instructions despite discomfort and fear. It is a testament to both her resilience and the high level of preparedness of her support team. Yet perhaps the most compelling footage came from a private security camera positioned along a nearby hedge line, initially installed to monitor for trespassers. This video shows something extraordinary. A figure appearing near the road just before the accident, lingering for a fraction of a second, then retreating. Analysts were initially cautious, suggesting it could be a bystander or a misinterpretation of movement. But upon closer examination, the figure seems deliberate, calculated, and aware of the car's presence. Questions immediately arose. Was this an innocent pedestrian, a coincidental movement, or a potential contributor to the accident? The implications are staggering, suggesting that the story may not be as straightforward as initially reported. The palace, of course, recognized the sensitivity of this footage. Internal reviews were conducted under strict confidentiality. Only trusted security and investigative personnel were permitted access, and discussions about release or public acknowledgement were carefully controlled. The goal was twofold: ensure Princess Anne's privacy and manage the narrative. Yet in an age where information leaks quickly, controlling the story became a near-impossible task. Every second counted, and every frame could alter perception. These videos also provided insights into timing and coordination that were previously unknown. From the moment the accident occurred to the arrival of emergency responders, the footage offers a precise timeline, valuable not just for medical and legal purposes, but for understanding the human response in moments of extreme stress. Guards moved within seconds, medical teams coordinated on encrypted channels, and family members were alerted in real time. The efficiency was remarkable, but it also revealed a truth. Even in an institution steeped in centuries of tradition, human decision-making under pressure is fraught with unpredictability. And then came a discovery that shook the internal team. One of the surveillance clips captured a brief interaction between a nearby witness and a palace security officer. The witness appeared to ask a question, gesture toward the road, and receive a cryptic response. While seemingly minor, this exchange suggested that palace personnel may have been aware of additional circumstances that were not yet publicly disclosed. The mystery deepened. What did they know, and why was it being withheld? For the palace, every piece of footage had to be carefully analyzed, annotated, and cross-referenced with eyewitness reports. This was not merely about recreating the accident. It was about uncovering hidden variables, identifying inconsistencies, and anticipating how any emerging detail could affect public perception and the family's reputation. And as more clips were reviewed, analysts began to notice patterns, movements, timing anomalies, and behaviors that suggested the accident was more than a simple collision. Yet amid all the technical analysis, there was a human element that could not be ignored. Footage revealed Princess Anne's composure and courage in real time, her instinctive responses under stress, and the quiet efficiency of those assisting her. These moments were fleeting, often subtle, but they revealed her character in ways that words alone cannot capture. Viewers and investigators alike could see not only the danger she faced, but the remarkable resilience she displayed. And just when it seemed that the footage had answered all questions, one final clip emerged, captured by a security camera on a nearby building. It showed a moment so unexpected, so potentially incriminating, that it changed the narrative entirely. A figure moved in the shadows moments before the crash, pausing in a way that suggested intent, then retreating before emergency personnel arrived. The presence of this figure introduced new questions. Was there an external influence, a deliberate act, or merely a coincidence? And perhaps most importantly, why hadn't this been disclosed earlier? The secret surveillance footage had opened doors that no eyewitness testimony alone could. It provided clarity, contradiction, and new layers of mystery. And while investigators and palace officials continue to parse the videos, one fact becomes undeniable. This accident is not just a story of a vehicle collision. It is a complex, multifaceted event involving timing, human behavior, and potential unseen factors. And just when the palace thought it had accounted for every angle, an encrypted video emerged, marked confidential, showing a moment that no one expected, one that would force a reevaluation of every assumption and leave both investigators and the public questioning. What really happened in those critical moments before the crash? The moment the palace received the initial reports of Princess Anne's accident, tension rippled through Buckingham Palace like a shockwave. What began as a crisis of logistics and medical urgency soon morphed into something far more volatile. The private dynamics of one of the most scrutinized families in the world were suddenly laid bare, under pressure, in a way no one could have anticipated.